But it's interesting. You're right. It gives us a peek into what the state is anticipating. Likely, it's going to look like this because this is what the state of Idaho is asking. That's why I asked if it was Kohberger. Maybe a different story, right?
We're going to get into some true crime here for just a second. A couple different stories I want to talk about. First story I want to talk about is the Bryan Kohberger case. Bring back mandatory sentences, yes. First story I want to talk about right now is the Bryan Kohberger case. There has been new documents dropped on this case. Bryan Kohberger has motioned for permission to seal his stay and asked permission to appeal the interlocutory orders judge has shut down. So I didn't know what that word meant, so I looked it up. Interlocutory appeal, locutory, in the law of civil procedure in the United States occurs when a ruling by a trial court is appealed while other aspects of the case are still proceeding. Allowed under specific circumstances which are laid down by federal and separate state courts. An appeal is described as interlocutory when it is made before all claims are resolved as to all parties. For instance, if a lawsuit contains claims for breach of contract, fraud, interference, whatever, and if there are three defendants in the lawsuit, then all three claims are resolved as to the three defendants. Any appeal by any party will be considered interlocutory. So here's what I would think in terms of the Kohberger case, right? Remember all of Bryan Kohberger's King Road house gets torn down and all, yes. Remember all of the requests for discovery. I would think that would be a reason for Bryan Kohberger to essentially say, man, fuck this. Fuck this. We can't do this right now. Either dismiss this shit, put a stay on it, do something. Let's take a look at this real quick. Taking a look at the documents. Order sealing defendant's motion for interlocutory. There's got to be a reason also that Bryan Kohberger wants this sealed. Mm-hmm. Has to be. There has to be some sort of reason. The court having before the motion to seal defendant's motion for interlocutory and good cause appearing now, therefore. It is hereby ordered that the defendant's motion to reconsider orders denying motions to dismiss indictment and the alternative for permission to appeal from interlocutory orders and stay of proceedings filed with the court on December 21st shall be sealed. He wants that information sealed. I wonder what the fuck the deal was with that. I'm curious as to why Bryan Kohberger. Now, I don't understand how they can destroy a crime scene without a conviction or even trial beginning. You would think the crime scene would be the most important part of the goddamn trial.
Okay, so we are going to get into speculation as to why BK is doing this. Let's just listen to somebody else. We're going to bring up the Drunk Turkey Show. The Drunk Turkey Show is actually, he is an ex-cop, so it is sometimes good to listen to his perspective on these.
Comment section. Let's break this down. So there was 3 documents that were dropped earlier today referencing the Bryan Kohberger case. The first one is order denying motion to dismiss indictment for inaccurate instructions to the grand jury. There's 13 pages of this. You can see at the bottom it is stamped redact. Now here's the actual order. This is the state of Idaho plaintiff versus Bryan C. Kohberger defendant. Public ordering denying motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct. On August 23rd, 2023, Kohberger filed a motion to dismiss indictment on grounds of biased grand jury, inadmissible evidence, lack of sufficient evidence, and prosecutorial misconduct and withholding exculpatory evidence. On September 14, 2023, the state filed an objection to the defendant's second motion to dismiss indictment. On September 20, 2023, Kohberger filed a reply to the state's objection. Kohberger has failed to successfully challenge the indictment on the grounds of juror bias, lack of sufficient admissible evidence, and the prosecutorial misconduct. Kohberger was indicted by an impartial grand jury who had sufficient admissible evidence to find probable cause to believe Kohberger committed the crimes alleged by the state. Further, the state did not engage in prosecutorial misconduct in presenting their case to the grand jury, dated signed 15th day of December 2023. Huge. This is huge for the state. Like I said, I didn't think that they were really in danger of having the case thrown out. Both of the arguments that they have, whether it's this one or the IGG utilization in this case, are futile arguments.
I'm going to stop there. And before I move on to any documents, do you have any immediate reactions to either of the creators we just listened to, Gia?
Not necessarily to the creators, but to what they said, because it's very normal what they did, because you're always, of course, Bryan Kohberger's attorneys are going to do a motion to dismiss based on A, B, or C, because if they didn't, then it could go back on appeal that they didn't do what they should have, right? So they always have to make these motions to dismiss, even if we're all going, well, that's ridiculous. Of course, it's not going to get dismissed. And as Drunk Turkey said, he really had no worry that it would be, and either would I. But it was the right thing. It's like best practice. It's a course of action. It's what you do, right? And if they didn't do it, that could give Bryan Kohberger a reason for appeal and to say my defense, they didn't do the right thing. They didn't do right by me, and they should have done this and they should have done that. And they should, right? So they even knew probably we're going to ask for this to be dismissed based on, grand jury. That they knew it wasn't going to be. It's kind of just a practical. It's just what you do. So these aren't surprising. I would be surprised if you didn't see these kind of motions.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that the process is working the way that it should.
Yeah.
That's what we all are hoping for, because there's been so much speculation in this whole trial. I actually found one that I thought you all would want to maybe take a look at here. Mm-hmm. There was 3 documents that were filed in like the last 7 days. This was the first of them. And I just thought it'd be worth just reading. So what they're suggesting is a summer trial, and this is the description of what they'd like. Scheduling a jury trial to run for approximately 6 weeks, including penalty phase. The state proposes that the court scheduling trial for the summer of 2024, and that the trial dates avoid times when Moscow High School and the area universities are in session. As the court is aware, Moscow High School is directly adjacent to the court premises, and there are already a significantly increased amount of media and other vehicles that strain available parking, blah, blah, blah. So the court... and then they're requesting that the trial be scheduled from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. So now we know kind of the hours they're going for, and that the trial length affords time for personal affairs, and then just a couple of other details. So the reason I'm bringing this up is it kind of gives us an idea of what we would see at a trial. We can see the end game a little bit. We can see what the picture painted is going to be. So
sort of. So this is a request for a scheduling order, right? So scheduling order just means at a scheduling order in any kind of trial, what that is it's where both parties come together in front of a judge or a magistrate. It doesn't necessarily have to be the judge that's going to preside over the trial. And this judge is saying, okay, we know we're going to trial. Let's define exactly what's going to happen all the way to a trial date, because prior to a trial date, there are other hearings that take place, right? So they're looking like how, and so the one you showed came from Kohberger, right? The motion for a scheduling order.
Let me look. That's a great question. I try to avoid the top of these screens because they sometimes tell too much information than I want to show.
Okay, state of Idaho. So the state of Idaho is requesting the scheduling conference. And what they're suggesting to the court is when this happens, to your point, we would like to see that it happen on a time where schools aren't in session, and here's why. So that kind of makes sense, right? We've got a lot of problems with parking. It's all housekeeping stuff. So a scheduling order is really, consider it like housekeeping, right? Like, so like for that reason, and we anticipate that it'll take about 6 weeks. And so the reason they say that is because they need to then get on the docket in a 6 week chunk. And so then whoever the clerk has to look and go, when is the docket cleared for a whole 6 weeks, right? And it might not, and they're saying, please try to do it during the summer, because if you don't, then you need to look out to the next summer, right? Because when our school's not in session for 6 weeks, only during the summer. So it either has to be this summer or the next summer based on
Oh my gosh.
their criteria, what they're asking. This is what the state of Idaho is saying. This would be best. So they're going to try to squeeze it in the summer. But it's also like, okay, all of you attorneys are on alert. Like, this is what we're asking for, and clear your calendars. Make sure, like, you're clear during the summer. If you have other things that could be moved, maybe move it, right? So the emotion is seen as like the only way you can ask the court for anything. So it doesn't even mean anything other than I'm asking, and now that motion needs to be ruled on. And it will. And then we'll see, right? But it's likely it's going to look like this because this is what the state of Idaho is asking. That's why I asked. If it was Kohberger, maybe a different story, right? They might not consider it as much.
How long do you think it'll take before they answer that motion?
Motions usually have to be ruled on in a certain amount of time, so I could look into that, but I know like a lot of times it's like motions are ruled on within, if they don't get ruled on within 30 days, then they get expedited to another place so I would say within 6 weeks.
Within 6 weeks. Okay, well that's great. I mean, at least again, it gives us some perspective on this.
Yeah.
So
they're only ripe. Motions are only ripe for so long. But it's interesting. You're right. It gives us a peek into what the state is anticipating. The state's anticipating that the trial will be held this summer, and they're saying 6 weeks. My guess it'll be longer than 6 weeks.
You folks can think that we'll probably have an update or an answer to this at least by the second week of February. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Gia, this is Pia is the name of the creator from Strange Suspicious. That's right. She's
yeah.
So
she was saying she didn't know who I was. I'm Kiki's sister-in-law. We just say sisters because we might as well be, right? Well, actually, the only other thing I did want to say about that is it makes complete sense. Of course, Bryan Kohberger is asking for everything to be sealed. So the reason so this spoke to saying, okay, we're granting the motion to seal it, but we will say that we're denying it, right? So we will say for transparency and for the public that the motion is denied. But Bryan Kohberger, when he made his motion, they put a lot of information in there as to why they wanted it to be sealed, right? That's why it's sealed. It's fine that it's denied, but it's like, and that makes sense because they've sealed everything under this case. And maybe they might have mentioned something in this motion that's already been sealed. So then that would make sense, right? Like that doesn't come out to the public. But the court was saying, in light of everything, you don't really need to know why they were asking, but it doesn't matter because it's denied.
That makes sense. And
yeah.
That makes sense too, because I mean, I couldn't quite think of the reason other than maybe something that he was using to dispute or make a motion against was also something he was going to be using for defense, and he didn't want to stigmatize it, saying that it wasn't worthy of dismissal or something. I don't know. Yeah,
and any information he might have put in there that he's speaking about, because everything's been sealed, that he's probably referring in that motion to something in a previous motion that's been sealed. So it's like, it makes sense that they would seal it. And they were like, yeah, granted, it's sealed. However, it's denied.
Well, thank you for breaking that down for us, Gia. We really appreciate it. We wanted to also talk about the demolition today. And I heard something really interesting. I was doing live coverage today, and Cluminati, who's a creator, true crime creator, we featured her on this channel before. She actually called into T-Rev's live stream, and she gave a really interesting theory as to why this house is being demoed. Oops, volume.
So you were talking about this yesterday, right? This like hurry for them to pull the house down.
Yeah,
and
this shit's weird.
I think it's money, right? So if you notice, the two houses beside of it were sold 1118 and 1126. They were sold on the same day at the same time to the same person. And this business that they sold it to has two businesses registered at that address, and one of them is a development company.
Huh. Interesting.
And I'm not going to take all the time because I know how it is when people get on there and just talk forever. I'm not going to do that to you, T-Rev, I promise. But
You good.
the other interesting fact that I found really compelling is that Scott Green was at Sigma Chi
Jeff.
5 nights before the 13th.
With
Huh.
Jeff.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he was there for some kind of banquet or whatever. I don't
So
remember if it was like,
all. So that's all the Scott Green fuss that I've been seeing lately. Okay. Okay.
all I know is he was there with the Sigma Chi boys. Like there's a photo I have of him somewhere, and he's like, you can see Ethan in the background of the photo. He was taking a photo with all of them, but he was there on November 8th, and then this happened on the 13th. But in my opinion, I think they want to put some sort of like apartments or housing there. Because
Interesting.
if you look at those three properties together, it's as big as the Queen Road apartment property.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I'm watching it right now. I just literally woke up and it's
She's
like
almost
it's
done.
pissing me off.
Yeah, no, it's gone too. The fact that it's gone is blowing my mind right now.
I know. Like I told fiance, I was like, when they get out there, I don't think people understand. Like it's gonna be about 10 minutes and it'll just be rubble on the ground.
And
Like I mean, it's crazy. I can't like I've never seen a situation where they do this, right? Like you have someone in custody, leave the evidence until the trial is over.
exactly.
Like I get your little fancy Oculus walk through the house virtual reality tour. I have an Oculus and it's nothing like real life. You know what I mean?
This shit is. I've just never witnessed this in any case that I followed ever.
No,
Ever,
because
ever.
I mean, and like I'm sorry, but yeah, you can put an Oculus on me. That's fine, but I'm not going to be able to stand in Dylan's room and have somebody go upstairs and see if they're making noise, if I can hear them. I don't know, like the size of the hallway where Brian walked by her or whatever, whoever did it. You know what I mean? It's just
Correct.
crazy. It's craziness.
It is crazy. Exactly. That, and I was just saying to everybody what and I'm just going with what if there is OJ Simpson, there is Casey Anthony, there is people that you know have got off on things allegedly.
So I hadn't heard that before. Any thoughts on what Cluminati was saying, Gia?
Well, yeah, because I think we did say it before, or maybe, I don't know if you and I said it not on a live stream, but to me, I'm a finance person. I get this. And of course, it's about money for the school because I don't know, whoever donated it to the school, of course, they want it torn down and they want to capitalize on making more housing that isn't stigmatized, right? I mean, that's just, and listen, I'm not trying to sound cold because I'm not, but it is business. And of course, if the house is sitting there, and I agree with everybody who says it should stand until the trial is over. I mean, that makes sense to me in many, many ways and on so many levels. However, that's not what they did. But the motivation behind the demolition and whether a developer owns this or that or whatever they're going to create, even if they just put up another house, this is money to the university, this is housing, and this is how universities act as a business, and that's how they're acting. And it seems really cold and awful. And the only thing I can't understand is, well, and I might understand, but I believe if the prosecution really wanted that house to stand, it would still be standing. I believe they would have a way to stop the demolition. I believe
legally or just like they would have a way
no
influence.
legal, no legal. They could have stopped it. There would have been a way. There would have been a course of action to stop that demolition. I know that. However, and this has been said through many channels, and including Steve Gonzalez, like they believe and they know, and we don't, what they have in evidence. That they believe there's so much evidence outside of the house at all that they can convict Bryan Kohberger. They're that confident. So that tells me that, all the speculation we're doing, which is great because this is how crimes are solved, and
innocent people don't get sent to.
Correct. Yeah. And it's necessary to do, but they have so much that's sealed, so we can't see it, that they're so confident that they said, go ahead and tear down the house. No big deal. Everything we have that we feel that we can convict him with has nothing to do with the house. That's where they're coming from. And then, as whoever was saying on this, and what people say, it's true. Can you really hear the footprints if you're not in the house? And no, you can't. But the answer is the prosecution doesn't think you need any of that for them to be successful. They're that confident. And so if we were just going based on evidence that only we know about, I would say there's so much room for BK's innocence. But what tells me that he's probably, and I could give a ton, I think there's all kinds of ways, like, oh, I can't, this doesn't make sense. But if I knew everything that the prosecution had, I might be telling a different story. So, and these people, this is what they do. They're that confident. I've never seen a case where the prosecution is so confident. And they're so confident that this trial is going to be incredible. This trial is we're going to be like a jaw dropping all the way along, and like, holy smokes, right? We're just not privy to any of that right now. If that makes sense. I'm just kind of.
It's the only way we can quantify this, because to me, this seems like this is a W for the defense in every way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think someone put up and said, who paid for the demolition?
Yeah, it was PIA.
Probably the university, because they're the ones that are, they own the land. I think either the university paid for it, or maybe the developer made a deal with the university to say, hey, let's put these properties together and we'll build one big, who knows? I mean, that's speculation too. But it would be the university because they own the land. Yeah. Well done for you. You were right on it today. I was like so excited to see that you actually had the live demolition, because I was like, oh, wow. I was thinking for some reason, and I don't know why, that the demolition was going to be happening later. I felt like it was happening a little before anyone anticipated, but you were right on that and streamed that live, and I thought that was terrific.
Thank you so much, Gia. See, I actually was under the same impression too, and I was under the impression the demolition would be going on during this live stream.
Yeah.
And then when I came on and I noticed some of the larger creators in the true crime community had 9 a.m., 9:45 and 10 a.m. live streams scheduled. And sure enough, right at 10 a.m., they had already ripped into the house. It was after covering this case and being so involved, it was really surreal to watch.
Yes, it actually was. Because you know what I found, and not to go off on a tangent, but it was really surprising to me, because with all the things that I saw and all of the people who were really interested and were signing the petition and really trying to have our voices heard, it was kind of disconcerting a little that seemed to just be completely ignored and went by the wayside, and but we should always have a voice, but I was surprised not more attention was given to that, and that the university just did what they wanted to, and tore it down. I don't know.
So I heard in T-Rev's live stream that he collected over 8,000 signatures. I haven't showed it on the channel, but there was a joint statement saying from the Kernodle/Gonzalez family stating how they didn't want this house brought down. And I think what's more disturbing to me is just the way that you feel that these victims' families have been handled. It seems so insensitive.
It seems insensitive, and it seemed really fast. I don't know. It just seemed, Thank you, Strange Suspicion. His little 1-minute clip there, that might be a good time for it.
So this is my husband, and he is a general contractor. He had a few words about this before he left for work this morning.
Yeah.
Today is the day the house is supposed to come down. Something I do for a living. First thing they have to do is go in, disconnect the gas. If there's natural gas, they have to disconnect the electric and the plumbing. The plumbing should have already been shut off, else it would have been frozen. And then they take an excavator and they smash the shit out of that house. They put it in 5 or 6 dumpsters probably, and it's done. It'll be done in like 4 hours if I was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the final cleanup the next day, grading it out and stuff. But that house will be gone in 4 hours if they decide to take it down. Which it is 7 o'clock Thursday morning, and I highly doubt this will happen today. Peace.
None of us thought it was going to happen.
That's it. I didn't think so either. I mean, this is my brother, right? Too. Your husband. This is what he does for. He's absolutely right, and he was right. It's like the demolition. It's going to take place, but and someone said it was very emotional. It is emotional. It just seems wrong. There's just, you know what, in the pit of my stomach, it just feels wrong that it got done, and it is about money. It's completely about money, and that's sad to me. And like I always go back to, because my son's 20, he's in college, and I so relate to this whole, almost as like a mom, and I'm like, as a mom, I would be like, this is incredulous that anybody wants to destroy something that may have potential value. It may not, but you don't know. And it's the same thing. Like, you can't unring a bell, right? Like, so once it's torn down, that's it. And it's gone. And so someone put up, it was very emotional. Yeah, that's emotional on so many levels. It really is. Yeah, Viv Keenan. I agree. And
that was reverberated quite a bit in the live stream today. It was very emotional. It was not just in my live stream, T-Rev's live stream.
Well, yeah.
The woman who called up in tears. So,
mm-hmm.
But
anyway, but I move on after that. But I really like that little clip with, I just felt like with Joey, saying this is how it's done. This is how quickly it's going to be over. And it just really shines the light on the fact that, like, this house has been, the point of content. It's been the whole focus, a lot of the focus through all of this. And how can you just demolish it in less than 4 hours? It doesn't make sense, other than from purely a monetary standpoint on behalf of the university, who's looking to have more housing.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
I'm glad we covered it today. I'm glad we're talking about it, and it's documented now. It's part of history. This, we've made a podcast, and we're glad that I'm just glad we were able to catch it live and make it part of this.
Yeah,
this podcast.